rooms for rent. Henry fell to his knees as his life's work, his store of 20 years, burned to the ground. He closed his eyes, tightly holding on to the last bits of sanity that he had. The flames surged uncontrollably, black smoke swallowing the sun. People watched from afar, shaking their heads. The fire truck stood idle, its lights flashing hopelessly. Nothing could be done to save Henry's shop. Anxious thoughts jumbled over each other in Henry's mind like a frantic crowd pushing through a narrow doorway. He wiped hot tears away and stood to his feet. Pitiful glances followed him as he turned around and walked away. He lay on his bed that evening, but a knock jolted him out of his thoughts. He was in no mood for visitors, but the knocks persisted. Grumbling under his breath, he dragged himself to the front door.
Can I help you?
He said before he saw who was standing before him.
Sir, we're from the bank,
said a tall, lanky redhead, holding a brown briefcase. Beside him stood a shorter blonde woman clutching a thick stack of papers.
We've come to offer our condolences for the loss of your shop. We understand how deeply distressing this must be for you.
Henry didn't respond. He simply tapped his fingers lightly against the doorknob. He was waiting for the real reason they had come.
The bank has agreed to extend your loan payment by 1 month, given the circumstances,
the woman said.
A month!
Henry's heart sank. He had barely been keeping up with his monthly payments. And now, with no income at all, how was he supposed to manage?
A month?
He repeated, staring at them wide-eyed.
I assure you,
the man said,
the bank is being unusually generous. My advice is to hold up your end of the agreement. Otherwise, the bank will have no choice but to take possession of this house.
But this house is all I have left.
We know. Make good use of it.
And with that, they turned and left. Henry stared at their retreating figures, stunned. His mouth hung open, stunned and still, as if words had abandoned him. He slipped back into his room and pulled the blanket over his head, hoping the world wouldn't find him there. Perhaps if he closed and opened his eyes again, he would realize this was all a very bad dream. Henry sighed. Had the bank people returned? Maybe they'd forgotten to mention that if he didn't pay up, they'd not only take his house, but also repossess the air he breathed. His angry footsteps pounded against the wooden floor as he stormed to the door. He flung it open.
What?
Henry said.
Hello, are you Henry?
A pale, average-height man stood at the door. His cheeks were sunken, his clothes wrinkled and tired-looking. Henry stepped outside.
Yes,
Henry said and furrowed his brows.
How can I help you?
My name is Walter Ransom Yarrow. My friends call me Worry. I am in town for a few months, and I am looking for a place to stay. Someone directed me to you.
Oh,
Henry said. It hadn't occurred to him until now, but he could rent out one of the other 3 rooms to this stranger. It might just be enough to keep the bank at bay. Maybe he wasn't doomed, after all. Relief bloomed into a broad smile on Henry's face. There was just one problem. He had no idea what to charge. What was room and board going for these days?
Sure,
he said, scratching his head.
I've got a few vacant rooms. That'd be 1,500 dravens a month. Utilities included. And, no pets.
Henry was failing woefully in his efforts to sound like a seasoned landlord.
1,500 dravens.
Worry rubbed his temples, then shifted from one foot to the other, his luggage resting at his side. He looked away for a moment, uncertain. Henry held his breath. That was a steep price, nearly a third of what he made each month at the shop. He had hoped that by renting out all 3 rooms, he could finally get back on track with repaying the bank loan.
Sure, I think I can do that,
Worry said. Henry sighed.
Good. I'll show you in.
By evening, Worry was settled in. He asked for directions to the market to pick up some basic supplies, and Henry promised to have his key ready by the time he returned. While Worry was out, Henry got to work making a duplicate house key. Fortunately, it was a skill he already had. No need to pay anyone else. Just as he finished, there was a knock at the door. That must be Worry, Henry thought. He opened the door, and yes, Worry was there. But beside him stood a young woman, no more than 20. She had the same thin frame and pale face as Worry, though she was slightly shorter, and she held a brown suitcase in one hand. Henry could not hide his confusion.
Henry, I hate to terribly inconvenience you, but...
Worry's voice trailed off. The young woman beside him looked like a frightened puppy.
Yes,
Worry continued, rubbing his temples again.
my younger sister just arrived in town and, well, she'll need a place to stay for a few months too.
Henry raised his brows.
Yes, we'd pay full rent for her as well. Perhaps she could stay in your other guest room.
Slowly, a wide smile spread across Henry's face. 2 tenants in one day. He could hardly believe his luck. Surely the heavens had seen his plight and smiled down on him.
Oh, of course. That won't be a problem.
Henry said, motioning for them both to come inside.
And what's your name?
He asked once they were in.
My name is Dessa Irene Par Yarrow, but everyone calls me Despair.
Her voice was soft but heavy.
Despair. Has a nice ring to it.
Henry lied.
Well, you're very welcome, Despair. Let me show you to your room.
That evening, Henry busied himself with making a 3rd copy of the house key. But halfway through, his cutting tool gave a sudden whine and stopped working.
What's going on?
He muttered, flipping the switch off and on again. Still nothing. He grumbled under his breath and walked back into the house. The house was dark. Every bulb had gone out. He flipped switches in the hallway. The kitchen, even the bathroom, but nothing. Just darkness.
Great. Lost power. Just my luck.
He muttered, grabbing his flashlight and switching it on. As he stood there, trying to figure out what to do next, Despair and Worry emerged from their rooms and stepped into the living room.
I'm sorry. We lost power,
Henry said.
This usually only happens after a big storm. I'm not sure what caused it this time. Would you like me to get you both some extra blankets? It gets pretty cold at night.
Oh, no worries.
Worry said.
We like the darkness.
And we like the cold.
Despair added softly.
Okay. Well, hopefully it comes back soon.
As Henry walked away, he looked back over his shoulder. Those two were quite unusual, he thought. That night, Henry shivered under several blankets, while his mind tossed and turned with thoughts of uncertainty, fear, dread. How was he ever going to survive this turbulent time? Was he really going to be able to pay off the loan before his house was taken away from him? Even if he paid off the loan, how was he going to start another business? Would he get another loan? The thoughts tormented him all night. Henry woke up the next day with a stubborn dull ache in his head that sat behind his eyes. He dragged himself to the kitchen to get a glass of water. Despair and Worry were playing a board game in the living room nearby. He heard them chuckling like they didn't have a care in the world. He twisted the faucet handle. It squeaked as usual, but nothing came out.
Great.
He murmured under his breath.
No power. Now no water.
He had tenants now. He had to find a way to provide water. Later that morning, as Henry walked through his neighborhood, he noticed the soft glow of front lamps lighting up doorsteps. He furrowed his brows. How come they had power? A little further down, he saw his neighbor's children laughing and shrieking, caught in the middle of a water fight, spraying each other with a garden hose. That's when it hit him. The problem wasn't the neighborhood, it was his house. By that afternoon, the repairman gave him the bill.
That will be 3,500 dravens,
The repairman had said.
What?
All the color drained from Henry's face and was replaced with a sickly pale hue.
Are you okay, sir?
The repairman said. Without another word, he shut the door and ran up to his room. His chest was heavy and he felt himself sinking. He lay on his bed and closed his eyes.
I need a miracle.
A silent tear escaped his eyes. He shuffled under his covers and then drifted into a slumber, full of dreams of dark shadows, closing in on him. Henry jolted awake from his dreams and immediately wrapped his arms around himself. He was shivering. With a reluctant groan, he made his way to the front door.
Can I help you?
Henry said,
Yes.
said a man of average height and build, standing just outside the door. He wore a simple, clean tunic and carried a well-worn leather satchel slung over one shoulder.
I'm in town for a few months and I am looking for a place to stay. I was directed here.
Oh,
Henry said unenthusiastically.
well, I have no power and no water. It's freezing cold.
I can help fix all that in exchange for room and board.
His voice was strong yet calm.
Oh,
Henry quickly did the math. If this man could fix the house, he could save the rent from the other tenants to keep paying the bank.
sure.
Henry said at last.
What's your name?
My name is Reed Emerson, though many call me the Redeemer.
The Redeemer.
Henry tested the word on his tongue. He couldn't explain it, but a flicker of hope sparked in the shadows of his heart.
Come on in. You're welcome here.
He said with a smile.
I'd get to work right away.
Mr. Reed said. Henry showed him to his room and headed back upstairs. Henry immediately tossed one of the blankets to the floor. He didn't seem to need it anymore. He lay down and drifted into a sweet sleep. He woke up the next morning feeling as though a fog had lifted from his mind. His thoughts were clear, his body light, and a surprising surge of energy pulsed through him.
I haven't felt this good in years.
He said to himself. He rolled to the side of his bed and saw the lamp glowing softly beside him.
The power's back.
He said aloud. Had the Redeemer fixed everything already? And so quickly? He walked quickly to his bathroom and turned on the faucet, and water, with a force Hal had never seen before, gushed out, splashing all over the sink. Henry laughed. He went downstairs to the kitchen and through the window. The color of the plants in his garden seemed to pop a little more, and the smell of the roses wafted into the house. His eyes then caught sight of a letter on the kitchen island. It had his name boldly written on it. He picked it up curiously. His eyes skimmed to the bottom of the letter. It read, "From worry and despair."
Dear Henry,
It read,
I hope this letter finds you well. We regret to inform you that we had to leave unexpectedly last night. The recent condition of the house made us uncomfortable, and we felt it best to depart. Moreover, we are needed at another home. Thank you for housing us this past few days. Perhaps we may return in the future. Sincerely, Worry and Despair.
Henry furrowed his brows. The conditions of the house were better. How could that make them uncomfortable? He shrugged and let out a quiet breath. Some things, he figured, weren't worth understanding. Later that day, Henry walked into the bank to make his monthly payment.
Hi,
He said, holding out a check.
here's this month's payment. 3,000 dravens.
He handed it to the cashier, a quiet sense of relief settling over him.
Oh, Mr. Henry,
She said, looking at her computer screen briefly.
it says here that your loan has been fully paid.
What?
Henry blinked.
You must be mistaken. Please check again.
I'm certain.
She replied, glancing back at the screen.
Your loan has been paid off. You don't owe the bank anything.
How? Who paid this off?
It says here that one Mr. Reed Emerson paid it off.
Henry's heart skipped a beat.
The Redeemer.
He whispered. He looked at the check in his hands. He was free. He could start all over again. He ran home.
Mr. Reed! Mr. Reed!
Henry called out as he stepped into the house. But there was no answer. He rushed to Mr. Reed's room and knocked several times. No response. Heart pounding, he pushed the door open. The room was empty. There was no sign of Mr. Reed, no belongings, no trace he had ever stayed. Just a small note resting neatly on the bed.
Live in the freedom you have now received. Watch who you let in your home. Remember, if you need me, just call the Redeemer.
Henry fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face.
Thank you. Thank you, my Redeemer.
He whispered, his voice trembling. Inside, his heart surged like a dam straining to hold back a flood. A few months later, Henry rebuilt his shop. Smaller, quieter, but filled with warmth and purpose. The end.